Buonasera, this is Thomas from Autogefühl, and today we got an Italian car. This is the Maserati Ghibli, the new Maserati, and we want to find out what it is capable of, because this is a V6 diesel. Will it sound like a diesel or will it sound like something more? And how can you use it as a driver, co-driver, maybe people in the back, and also the trunk? So we also take a look at the versatility. But of course, what is most important about this Italian car is the design, exterior and interior. We are right starting with that. Starting in the front, this is really my favorite perspective because of the huge Maserati logo and this black color here. I really love it. From the front, it's really looking very masculine. The headlights, well, they are quite slim, I must say. But still, if you just look at the front perspective, it's really very powerful and also classic Maserati style. Coming to the rear now, we see that the design line from the rear windows is kind of going up a little bit and heading towards the Maserati logo, which is kind of a very nice design feature that we got it here really put on. And the rear, I must say, it's the least favorite perspective of the car. I think this could also be something else. It's not classical Maserati. I mean, just think the logo isn't there. It could also be some other car. But you see these 4 pipes here, and these have a very special function we're showing you right now. Could you hear the difference? This was the sport mode. So in the normal mode, this V6 diesel, well, just sounds kind of awkward. But in the sport mode, the V6 diesel really sounds rather like a petrol V8. Really nice feature, and I would always drive in this mode actually. Looking at the engine design, I must say it's done very well, especially this kind of, you know, I think it's very well done. It looks clean and also powerful. And coming towards the interior now, the first thing we realize, it is a 4-door coupe. We got no frames here, and also we've got no frames in the back. And that's also always something special about the car when it's done that way. Starting with the seats here, this is really some kind of Italian craftsmanship. Look at this here, like a stamp. You can see the logo here. This is very nice, and they're also quite comfortable. I've driven a longer route now, and I must say I'm feeling totally fine. Even for tall persons, that's very good. You got enough headroom as well, and also enough space. About the steering wheel, well, you see it for yourself here. Maybe you can see it better now. Yes, it's very huge actually. It reminds me of the Jeep Grand Cherokee actually. I think for a sports car this should be smaller, but the steering wheel is very well done. Specially designed feature here, and also the grip handles here, and the kind of material of the surface, that's really high class. One of the highlights here is also the analog clock, covered by a small dashboard himself. And also the whole dashboard is covered with leather. And this is really the highlight of this car. The interior is really superior and makes a very good quality impression. I think they have done a very good job here. Also look at this soft ceiling. Just got a small window up here, but you can use it till about 100 kilometers an hour, and then you can use it very good without a lot of wind noises. Above 100 it gets a bit noisy, so you should close it then, but it's always good to have it. Starting with real wood here in the middle console, makes this classic superior interior. And then we move up to the modern infotainment system. And this also reminds me on the Jeep Grand Cherokee, because kind of the same is used here. But it's quite fast. You can reach everything. It's kind of like intuitive. For radio and navigation, just that you get a look how it really looks. I think it could look a bit more modern just from the basic style, but you find everything quite fast. And I think you will get along with it. We would really like a soft close door here, because just listen to the sound. That's better in a Volkswagen, for example. I think this sound is, well, it's not too pleasant for the ears, so no sound design is there. Coming to the back. You see, there is really for tall persons a limited space for the knees. I got the driver's seat just like I drove now, and I can hardly get my legs in here. But the headspace is quite okay. But I would not recommend this for driving with more than 2 persons, unless you got kids or something like that. So not so much versatility here. But the quality here in the back is also very superior. That I must admit. Coming to the trunk. Well, it jumps a bit open. I'm not sure about that. Then this is kind of massive, but just in plastic, and it takes a lot of space, you see. It narrows the trunk. And it's also quite a flat, but you got a long way in there. So I think because of the long way in there, that's quite okay. But you shouldn't expect too much of it. So, to look at the everyday driving, we can first conclude it here. It's more a car for 1 or 2 persons, and you shouldn't expect too much from the trunk or the rear passengers. Okay, let's get to some driving. I'm showing you the GPS and how fast it goes. Just trying now here. That's actually very fast, I think. It's a good responsive touchpad here. So that's it. What do you think? Now we turn down the voice. That we're not disturbed. No. Okay, now it's silent. Great. So, what do you realize when driving this car? My first impression was just kind of overwhelming because of this premium atmosphere. And also you see, it's not kind of really just black. I think it got some kind of blue stitch here everywhere. And I really love this because, you know, black is so often used in all of the cars. It already gets boring, and so when it got this kind of blue stitch, also in the surrounding of the blue instruments, that's really something special. And I also got used to the bigger steering wheel now because it just feels so good. It also gives you this premium feeling. And I must really say, there's a lot of controversy about this car. Some people say it's really astonishing, and some people don't like it. But I must say, just from the impression of the interior especially, I really like it. And the driving is also, well, it's sporty, yes. See it here when I just curve around now, right to the left. Still, it's quite comfortable, I must say. And you should always use the sport mode. We've shown before, this is kind of the key here, sport. And then you can always feel from the inside as well. That's kind of the difference really. You can manually shift right here. You've got huge shifting levers. And they're actually that huge that they cover a bit like the The Stockholms for the wipers, I'm not so sure about that. They could have been a bit more smaller. But still, they look good and they feel good. We've seen it, for example, in the Jaguar F-Type. There was kind of a very soft plastic, which looked kind of cheap. So that's better here, actually. So one of the reasons this car is fun also as a diesel is this. Hold on. I think three. I think my cameraman especially felt it. This diesel has so much torque that the rear wheels got a lot of spin when I started to push the throttle really now. And that's actually a lot of fun when driving also in everyday life. Okay, you don't always have to use the wheel spin. You shouldn't do it. But it's really a lot of fun because you got this really sporty feeling. And still, that's also the reason why you should go for the diesel. The consumption is really okay. I got a consumption now with like also fast driving on the Autobahn and also mixed with just cruising around the landscape and also a bit of city mix. About 7.5 liters. I think for this big V6 diesel, that's pretty much okay. You could get it lower if you want to have less performance, kind of. But I also drove 200 kilometers on the Autobahn just to test it, and the car was still very stable, I must say. And that's also kind of a sign that the suspension works very well. Just sometimes, for example, when you're going on bridges, then you sometimes have to feel, okay, it's kind of moving a bit. That wasn't too good actually, but I mean, when you can drive a car 200 and still stable and you have trust in the car, that's also a sign for good quality in the suspension. So lately there have been some moaning about Italian cars, and sometimes I must say they are actually right. And I think maybe like the Brits in Jaguar Land Rover or like the German cars from Volkswagen, Audi and Porsche, they are rather perfect, especially the German cars, and the Italian cars maybe lack some of this perfectness, but they have a special emotional approach, and this is basically done by the interior here, and maybe even so by not being so perfect. So it's kind of something when you want something different. And I think this is really well done here, and Maserati has got this leap from a rather old traditional brand to a very modern brand now with this kind of smaller car, middle class car. I know someone say it's not a middle class, but just from the size, I think it's middle class. Of course, you know, when you take just the quality and the price and also the interior, it's not kind of middle class comparing to the normal middle class, but when you just look at the size, you know, just to clarify that. If you want the suspension to be stiffer, just press this button. Then we got the sport suspension, and we got more feedback than from the road. And especially when it gets a little bit curvy now, it's just more fun. You know, it doesn't get too uncomfortable. Maybe the steering could be a little bit more direct. It's not too soft, the steering, but I think especially when you got combinations of left and right, then you could have a little more feedback on the steering wheel, I think. So I wouldn't rather put it in the pure sports car category. It's more like a very nice mixture, you know. I can recommend it for longer trips, definitely, because you really feel cozy here. Also you got support from your head. The side support is also good for long journeys. But if you want to have fun in between and step up the pace, you can also do that. When you're standing still, you know, at the red traffic light, there's always something you can see with your eyes and that makes you smile. For example, this kind of detail here. You see, it's all just one design line, and when you open the door, you can't hardly see that it's kind of really the door handle, but it is. And the door handle is just in the design line with the door. It's very beautiful done, also with the wood contrast here. So there are always kind of small elements that catch your eyes, and that makes this Maserati experience here. Something you really miss in everyday driving is that it turns actually faster. I now had to move back here again because it rather feels like a pickup when you know, when turning all the way. It's really hard when you have to go through very narrow parking spaces. So that could have been a bit better here. But you don't realize it when driving normally and faster, of course. So let me fill you in with some details also about the numbers. You see, I think just from the outlook, the car looks kind of small. I always said, for me, it's looking like a compact car, like or just a middle segment, but we're actually in the upper middle class segment. And it is 4.97 meters long. I wouldn't have imagined that. And that's kind of even a bit longer, 1 centimeter, than the Jaguar XF. Also the same size than the Mercedes E-Class. But I must really say, from the inside, it doesn't have the size, and it also feels kind of smaller when driving it. That can be a disadvantage or an advantage, however you take it. You shouldn't need the space really in the back then. However, the car is very light, only 1,745 kilograms, and that's for this car, for this class, especially good, I think. And you also got the perfect weight balance, 51% to 49%, so almost 50-50 the balance from the front to the rear, and this gives us also a very sporty feeling. And the figures on the power, this V6 diesel got 3 liter and 275 horsepower, and it gives an unbelievable torque of 570 Newton meter. That's really comparable to big sports cars with petrol engines. Though I said it earlier, you already got wheel spin here when you press the throttle, so you really got enough torque. So to conclude about the Maserati Ghibli, I think Maserati produced a very modern car, and they had a very big leap forward in comparison to the older models. And especially the interior quality is very superior and gives you this very emotional feeling when driving the car. The exterior, I think you can argue about. The front is very beautiful. Side and rear profile, I don't like it that much, but I think it's also up to you. What do you think? We await your comments on that. And in general, I think the V6 diesel is very promising, especially with the sound button. You really forget you're really forgetting it's a diesel, and so that also makes fun when you got this rear spin from the massive torque you got there. So it's a very fun car, and it's also quite compact. So if you don't need much space in the back, but still want a very premium, high superior car, especially from the interior, this is your choice. So thanks for watching, and tell us your feedback about this video, and we are waiting for you at the next episode.